So he's going to go ahead and have a talk here, and then after this we have two more great speakers coming up.
Unlike most of you people, I've been sitting on my butt for 74 years letting other people do the heavy lifting. Those days are over. They're done. It's time that everybody gets involved like you have been. I was out in South Dakota doing farm work for 3 weeks in August. I came back to this and a neighbor filled me in on it, Toby Green. When I read the ordinance, I was outraged at what I read. We fortunately are getting some help. In Pennsylvania yesterday, a federal judge declared the rules that the governors and mayors there have declared as unconstitutional, and that when a virus or any kind of mental health, physical health problem occurs in this country, you do not abrogate your constitutional rights. We got to support those people. There are going to be more suits like that, and hopefully the courts will continue to make that kind of decision. There are 5 words that end the Pledge of Allegiance. We've said it mindlessly hundreds of times. I taught in the district for 33 years. I subbed for 18 years. And so 51 years I've been in the Sheboygan district. And almost every day we would say the pledge. The last 5 words, I never really thought about them. Liberty and justice for all. Every time we say it now, it'll give that a whole new meaning. I watched a video of Adam Payne, our county administrator, out in this very courtyard. I think it was done on August 18th. And during that video, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, well, we don't intend to enforce the ordinance, but we think it's important to have it. And he said, by the way, Chapter 252 of the state statute, Code 252, says we can do this whether we enact this or not, but then you can go to jail if you violate the rules. Then he said, we're not going to enforce it. I want to read line 3 regarding disease control, providing for enforcement of public health orders. Line 18. Recognize that in certain situations, enforcement may be necessary. They're talking about enforcement. I'm going to digress just a little bit because there are words in here that we have to take a look at. I was on multiple negotiations teams over the years in the union. A strange role for a conservative, but I did it. And I helped write language. We tried to make that language clear and unambiguous so that if 10 different people read the language, they would all get the same message. They would all know what it means. What we found out was, in spite of how careful we were to frame the language, there were always people who would interpret it differently. And this was highly specific language. This language that in certain situations, like what, for example, it doesn't specify what those situations may be. It's entirely up to an unelected official, the county health officer, to decide what those situations might be. Enforcement may be necessary. Well, if it doesn't involve me, I might not care. For the first 74 years, I probably wouldn't have. Now I care. I would not probably deem it necessary if it's affecting me. That doesn't describe anything. That gives them carte blanche authority to do whatever they want as an unelected official. In line 21, the county board finds it is in the best interest of the public to create a civil enforcement mechanism for violations of public health orders. He said, we don't want it enforced. Really? Fines of $25 the first time, $50, then $100. And if you're in business, you're in trouble because this has some teeth. They have licensing authority. And if you have a business and you don't comply, they can revoke your license. Try getting it back if that ever happens. It probably wouldn't. You would be out of work.
Which way are you heading?
I'm going this way.
Quarter past?
Another statement he made, if there's a significant surge, we might act upon it. A significant surge. What does that mean? He tried to identify what it meant. I believe he said, if our intensive care unit reaches a capacity of 50%, then we might enact some orders. Well, I read the ordinance. It doesn't say anything about a significant surge. It doesn't say anything about 50% ICU capacity. He was making that up as he went to try to mollify you people, to try to play it down so it was more palatable. But he was lying because it's not in the ordinance. He said, we might enforce it. This was in the paper that I read. It might be enforced if there's an egregious violation. Oh my, a big word. He must be intelligent. In other words, if there's a really serious violation, it has to be egregious, then we might enforce it. There's nothing in the ordinance about that either. So again, he was lying. Line 42, the Sheboygan County Health Officer can act upon the appearance of any communicable disease. He tried to sell it as an ordinance for COVID. But they can act upon any communicable disease. And then line 54, may do what is reasonable and necessary. When I read this a week ago, my blood boiled. For the inspecific information, giving them carte blanche authority to do whatever they want to abrogate your constitutional rights. This whole ordinance is predicated upon the notion that you people are too stupid to take care of yourself and protect you and your families and to make decisions for yourself. But they're smart enough to do it for you. They'll take care of you. Really. If enacted, you would lose what we all enjoy now and have for 240 some years in this country, self-determination and autonomy. The Constitution's a wonderful thing, and this would do nothing but tear it down. We already have a track record out there on the country, governors and mayors who have enacted things to react to COVID-19. They pick winners and losers. They use terms like essential work. Well, if it's your job that is feeding your family and paying your heat bill and putting gas in your car and making your house payment, that's an essential job. Every job is essential. The First Amendment particularly would be gutted. It says we have the freedom of speech. A speech like this in a public forum would not be allowed because we wouldn't be allowed to gather. That's another part of the First Amendment, the right of free assembly and to peaceably assemble. Another part of it is to have grievances heard against the government. You wouldn't be allowed to have any grievance against the government because they aren't doing it. An unelected official would be making those decisions. And the exercise of religion. The First Amendment says we have a right to establish and free exercise of religion. In 1963, of course, Madeleine Marie O'Hare, she got the Supreme Court to change that to from religion. We've never had freedom from religion. We have freedom of religion. And this would change that because churches all over this country have been closed. All over the country.
But Walmart's open.
So what do we do? Well, obviously you people are doing the right thing that I've been neglecting to do for all of these years. We need to get the word out. If in fact this is tabled tonight, and I suspect it will be, we need to alert neighbors, family, friends, co-workers, your bridge club members. I see Tom Lubach and John Pleasance from Farmers and Sportsmen. I'm a member there also. The members of your gun clubs. People that are in your Saturday morning breakfast group. Get the word out. Be vocal about it. Let people know what's happening. And let the support for this grow. This is just a start. So, we started out with the pledge. Dave, where's Dave? An eloquent guy. Oh! He must have known I was a nasty old teacher because I asked him to come up here and he's not going to disobey me. Look at this guy. Yeah. So anyway, I started out with the last 5 words of the pledge, liberty and justice for all. And I'd like to end up with all of us saying it and boom it out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I appreciate I appreciate the privilege of you allowing me to speak.
I'm going to go ahead and invite the man, the myth, the legend up here. Nothing regular about Regular Joe.
Good afternoon, Sheboygan. Welcome to my merry band of regulars. I want to thank everyone that put this event together. It is amazing. I only have a few names. Kip Ertl, Lucy and James Goldbeck. That was James just there a minute ago. Everybody from the Sheboygan County for Freedoms and We Are Sheboygan. Let's hear it for all these great people that have put this event together. Just so everyone knows, it's obviously a nice warm day, little breeze. There's water at the tables, free water for anyone. So, if you're feeling that you need water, make sure to help yourselves do it. I want to start out by, first of all, just saying, look, I know you're probably a little disappointed because one-term Tony's not here today. He was here 2 days ago without a mask on. So I'm not going to wear one either. Not that I would have anyway, but at least maybe he's catching on. So.
Yeah, but he looks better with a mask.
Yes, the mask isn't. The good part about a mask, maybe it's a way to muzzle politicians. I'm just going to put it out there. He talks through his. Did you ever notice the mask that one-term Tony wears looks like a coffee filter? Every time I see it, I want to say, "Where's the Senka?" I don't. Anyway, so we're dealing with a situation here that's almost unique. I mean, the government seizing power, that's a very old tale. But in this case, an unpaid bureaucrat pulling the strings of your county board. That should never happen. Now, we've heard over the past weeks and months this idea that we should defund the police. Exactly. I have a better idea. Let's defund unelected bureaucrats who have far too much power. I looked up, isn't it fitting his last name is Payne in the, sorry, Adam Payne, it's a rated G show, so I'm not going to say what I want, but it's not, God has a great sense of humor that he would pick a man named Payne that would give us so much pain. But look, his professional career, as I looked at his bio, what I could find, appears to be that he likes to live off of your tax dollars. And it's great because you know what? He hasn't missed a paycheck during COVID-19. His health insurance benefits haven't been put on hold. Nothing has changed for the elected officials or unelected bureaucrats that are all for this COVID scare, the scare-demic, the scam-demic that it's become. What we need to change it into, and you are a great start. I mean, this is an amazing turnout. What we need to turn the scare-demic into is a pandemic of courage. And that starts here today with each and every one of you. We need people, and Herb, where did Herb go? He was here. He gave me, wow, I saw Herb and I almost didn't want to come up and speak. I mean, he had the flag, and I mean, Orlean, God bless you. That story, I read that story, you sent it to me, and I was sitting in my chair late at night, checking my emails, and I'll be honest, I cried as I said, I woke my wife up, she was asleep, and I said, you've got to read this, and of course it touched her as well, and she said, now I'm not going to go back to sleep, and I said, maybe we shouldn't, because this is one example of what happens when you have unchecked power. And I'm going to tell you, you've got Adam Payne here, and I may be unpopular, but you've listened to, just for the record, how many of you listen to the radio show, The Regular Joe? Okay, so then this won't be a shock. This could be done if the effeminate Robin Voss and the loudmouth Jim Steineke, better known as the Speaker of the House and Majority Leader, would get off their tails, call a special session, and overturn the illegal, unconstitutional emergency declaration. It would be done. Instead, they have people call and harass me, which I just look at it as sport at this point, to tell me how I'm hurting the November election because I'm pointing out they're not doing their job. Somehow they think by doing nothing, that will help them to be reelected. Now, I'm not sure what world they come from, but lack of action is not inspirational. We look at what our president has done, we look at what good elected officials are doing, standing up, that's inspirational. What the people of Sheboygan are doing here today is inspirational. Because you're dealing with powers that don't want to be checked. Yes, they should vote to file it. That does it away for 2 years. I think I heard one of the speakers earlier, I think it was James, said, but one of the tricks, by the way, is they say, well, we're filing it. And then they just write a different resolution that's a little bit different, slightly different language, and they file it as a new resolution. But understand something. If not for what you've done up to this point, if not for each and every one of you standing here today, he wouldn't even be fainting that he was going to file the resolution. They would be pushing this ordinance through, and you'd find out about it weeks and months later when they came after each and one of you. And that cannot be allowed. Why would they want to defund the police and they want to arm health officers? Now, I understand Adam Payne harassed my affiliate here because he said, well, the ordinance didn't say mandatory vaccines. You know what it also didn't say? That it wouldn't impose mandatory vaccines. I shouldn't say unfortunately, it's my home. I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm a native of Washington, D.C. That's a rare breed. I escaped, and I came to real America back in 2007. But I have worked around politicians and bureaucrats like Adam Payne most of my adult career. And they always think they're smarter than you. They're always thinking they're one step ahead of you. But the fact of the matter is, that's their hubris. And that will always be their arrogance will undo them. Not only should they file this ordinance, and it should never be brought back to the light of day again, but then there needs to be a concerted effort that this man's contract, his job, needs to be questioned. He has far too much power to be an administrator. He is accountable to no one right now. It's the upside down man. Elected officials work for who? Who do they work for? Exactly. He works for himself. He has this board doing his bidding. I mean, there's some good people, James pointed out, but by and large, you have a board taking the advice. This is one of the problems we see in Congress. You elect a new guy, he goes to Washington with all the right ideals, and guess what? They staff him with people that have been there for 30 years, and they whisper in their ears, this is what you got to do. This is how you can be popular. This is how you can get favor. You can bring more money back to your district, but you have to compromise. And this is a microcosm of that sickness that we see in Washington, the swamp. Exactly. Well, we can drain the swamp in Washington, but we need to drain it in Sheboygan too. Now, I don't think they mentioned this, but the numbers. Okay, so the spike. Now, does everyone remember it seems like years ago at this point, but it was only in March. I mean, really, has 2020 been the longest year? I mean, my goodness, could it? My son, Regular Joe Jr. is here, and he sent me an article that they think they found life on Venus, and he said, come on, 2020, just be done already. What does it take? It is the longest year in history. At least it feels that way. But they talk about in this ordinance, well, if there's a spike. So far in Sheboygan, since March, there have been 12 deaths that they report are from. Now, I don't know if that includes your husband, because obviously that number is not correct. But they're saying, but let's just use their fudge number. Let's say it's 12 people in all of this county. How many people since March have died from heart attacks? How many people have committed suicide from abject depression by being cut off from all of humanity, being told they can't hug someone, they can't shake a hand, they aren't smart enough to decide whether they can go to church and worship God, but you can go to Walmart? What in the world? Why aren't those numbers being reported? And the reason, it's a simple answer, they don't want you to know. Let's start counting the number of police officers being attacked, shot, and injured by Black Lives Matter. Where are those numbers? Put that on the news every night. Where are the Green Bay Packers members who are giving money and supporting Black Lives Matter, giving money to Planned Parenthood. What in the world is a football team doing this for? Why are they coming out? Exactly. Why aren't they getting on the news and talking about these two deputies in LA that were ambushed? A 31-year-old woman with a 6-year-old son who's praying that his mother will live. A 24-year-old deputy that did nothing but serve. Shot, and it's being celebrated by the very group they claim somehow wants equality. That's not what this is about. This is, I'd call it the slow boil of the frog, but they've kind of turned the temperature up, of our freedom and our liberty. We can do it at the ballot box. We can do it this November. We can do it in 2 years, James mentioned, when these county board supervisors are up for re-election. We can do it through the simple fact that your taxes pay their salaries. And they better live. You know, Donald Trump's president. Now, I did some videos back in 2009. Yes, he is. Yeah. Imagine if Kankles was president right now. That would just be so unpleasant to consider. But I did some videos way back in 2009 when the idea of Donald Trump being wasn't being talked about. And they're called the For Real videos. And I used to end them with the fact that you have to be informed and get involved. And speaking of elected officials, I said, and if it doesn't work, pull a Donald. You're fired. Which back then had a whole different meaning than it does right now. And now, again, this is where the difference is. Our founding fathers had no choice but to put everything on the line, including their lives. God, I pray we won't have to do that again, because we now have mechanisms to avoid the physical battles by waging the battles at the ballot box and by making unelected bureaucrats accountable for the actions they take. Because look, he does officially answer to people in this county. And if he doesn't do the job, you have the right to replace that person. And based on what I've seen and what I've learned about Adam Payne, he needs to be a distant memory for Sheboygan. I like it. Relieve the pain. You know. Now I see so many. I like it. Or go with it. I like it. I love what I'm looking. I mean, I see the signs, the flag. This is something that it comes up on the show a lot, even when people email me. And again, right now we're isolated like we've never had before. By the way, just for a show of hands. Does anyone here know the last time in the United States of America, the greatest nation that has ever graced the face of this earth, where freedom is the foundation of all we do? Exactly, and that's the question. Who knows the last time prior to 2020 that Christians were not allowed to celebrate Easter Sunday? Exactly, never. Now you're telling me in the flu of 1918, you're telling me with World War I, World War II, the War of 1812, the numerous diseases that we've cured and we've helped people through. You're telling me in all of that, we figured out how to show up and worship at the very values our country was founded on. Our Judeo-Christian values. Why? Because we know with Bernie in that empty suit, Joe Biden, I mean, people get mad because I says, I feel bad for Joe Biden. He is being used and abused. It's elder abuse what they're doing to this man. He clearly has cognitive disorders and they shouldn't be pushing him out there. But they're using him to get a Marxist revolution at the ballot box. And we have to stop that. Understand how Marxism works. The first part of Marxism is you eliminate God. God has to be eliminated so that because they know something about us. Our hearts yearn for truth. And there's no greater truth than God. So we yearn for God. And Marx and everyone that's followed understands that you have to separate people from faith because they'll look for something to fill the void. And the void, the way they want to fill that void is with the government. They want to give you their version of God. And Adam Payne wants to be that deity. And people like Adam Payne want to be that deity. And then when they've eliminated the religion, or separated you from religion. They then want to ostracize people that won't comply. You know, like people that don't want to wear a mask to go shopping. People that think their children should go to a school building to be educated. People that want to opt out of this insanity that is the scaredemic and live life boldly as we are called to do as Americans. So they isolate you from religion, then they isolate you from people. They put you out to the sea without a rudder. And then they come in like the fireman that starts the fire and says, I've got the solution. And they say, well, we can do it. We can make it better for you. I just heard Tony Evers today. I know. I do it for you. I do. Yes. Recall Evers. Sign the petition right over here to the right. To my right, your left. I can't say left. It hurts. All right. But I listened to his press conference today updating us on COVID-19. And then Andrea Palm, by the way, another thing we can do. Do you know what her real title is? It's Secretary Designee. She has not been confirmed. The Senate can deny her confirmation, and she's done. She's gone, and he can't nominate her again. Again, look at that. Our elected officials could do their job, and we could make this a better state. Let's get it done. But they were talking about how, don't worry if you're unemployed. We haven't given you unemployment checks, by the way. They're figuring that out. Caleb Frostman and his infinite intelligence. But don't worry, because if you don't have health care, we've made it easier for you to get state-run health care. That sounds like a brilliant solution. Because, I don't know, then you're dependent more on the government. And what happens when you're dependent on the government? They can control you. What if you have a child who needs insulin to live? And they say, we can't give you that insulin until we stick this needle in your arm. What then? And this is where the stupidity and the lack of leadership by the Assembly Republicans comes to roost. Because if we fight the little battles, like an illegal masking mandate, like this illegal emergency declaration, like Ordinance 3, when we fight those now, we prevent the need for a bigger battle later. This compliance, which is truly the shocking thing to me in all this, has been the number of people willing to easily comply with all this. It's been so disturbing. And thankfully, many seem to be waking up from that. But when you comply then, it makes it that much easier for them to make you comply when the next level comes. And mark my words, it will come. Today at this press conference, Tony Evers was asked at least 3 times, are you going to extend the masking mandate in the emergency declaration? The first time he gave the typical Skeletor answer, which is, well, that's the first part of every answer. And then he said, well, we're not really sure. We'll get to that. We're looking at what can be done, but we think it's legal. Well, of course, because they haven't been challenged by the checks and balance of the legislature yet. And he hemmed and hawed. That's pretty much all of his answers. The second time it was asked, he said, well, we think it's working. And we'll find ways to make sure this continues to work for the people of Wisconsin. The third time he was asked, he said, we're looking at all options. Let me tell you, let me translate one-term Tony language. Yes, they're going to try to extend this mandate. And then he was asked at the last one of these press conferences, point blank, should the vaccine be mandatory? And his words were, I believe it should be. There is no hedging on that whatsoever. Now look, if you want to take the shot, take the shot. That's your freedom. That's your right to decide. The government has no right to tell us what to wear, whether or not we should be vaccinated, whether or not we can go to church, whether we can go to work. That is not in their purview, and it needs to end. This is a stand for freedom and liberty. In the next 49 days, that will be challenged by everyone that wants to take it away from you. And the way we win, though, is we don't give in to the emotionalism that we've seen from these rioters in Kenosha and around the country. We use our reason, our logic, and our faith. And we act smartly, and we act effectively. We come out and we let people know, and it's the old joke from the movie, we're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore, but we mean it. We mean the fact that we stand for freedom, for liberty, for the United States Constitution. which the preamble is the Declaration of Independence. And I heard Herb talk about liberty and justice for all. What are the words that precede that, though? Before we have liberty and justice for all, we have one nation under God. In our preamble, it says where our rights come from. They don't come from Adam Payne. They don't come from a county board supervisor. They don't come from one-term Tony. They don't even come from Donald Trump. In our preamble, it says that our unalienable rights are granted to us by our Creator God. And that's what makes them unalienable. That's what we stand on. And that's how we move forward. And we tell people, you know, we're opting out and we will live life boldly. It's not a matter of just surviving, but thriving in these great United States. Here in Sheboygan, here in the state of Wisconsin, we can make the difference. When we stand up in numbers like we are today, they won't ignore us. And we are smarter. We don't need to create violent revolution like the left does. Because all that is intimidation. Poor Arlene said earlier about being intimidated to just celebrate the life of her husband. That's despicable that anybody would talk to a widow that way. That is not America. That, for all of their talk, what are the 3 R's of the left with this presidency? Russia, recession, and racism. Now let's think about it. The scaredemic finally gave them the recession. Racism. You want to talk about racism? Racism is when you tell people that one group is better than another. And that's what Black Lives Matter does every day. That is bigotry, and it's ugly. Look what it's bred in this country. All Americans have equal rights. It doesn't matter. What did Martin Luther King say? It has nothing to do with your skin color. It's the content of your character. If you throw a brick at another human being, you don't have any character. And you should pay for what you've done. That's what it comes down to. So if we're going to fight, we fight smarter. We make sure. Mark Lauder was on my show, a guy from the Trump campaign. He had the simplest, greatest idea. There's probably, 300-400 people here right now. If each of us brings someone legally that is able to vote, that I always put that in there for anyone that might be here from the left. We do things legally. Legally allowed to vote, that didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. If each one of us brings one person to those voting polls on November 3rd, that will be a landslide that might rival Ronald Reagan in 1984, and he won 49 out of the 50 states back then. We can do it. It's not up to elected officials. It's up to our work, you and me, and our source of hope is not in any human, but in the eternal source of hope that will never fail us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America.
Let's give him another round of applause. That was amazing, right? I'm just going to talk for a few moments, and what we're going to do is sing a Star Spangled Banner. And then I'm going to go inside because apparently John told me I'm speaker number 1 inside today. So I go first. And you can watch it live if you want to. Just want to touch on a couple things that I think are very important. So let's highlight some facts. Go ahead, you can come this way. Go ahead. Come on up. Hello. So the first and foremost is, why are we here today? We're here because of Ordinance 3. Does anybody know where Ordinance 3 came from? It came from hell, that's right. Guess who delivered it? Mr. Adam Payne. It's very unusual. Typically what will happen is a department head or a county board supervisor will then propose an ordinance, because after all, these ordinances should be helping our community, right? But instead, this was rushed through in a last-minute meeting by Mr. Adam Payne. So this Ordinance 3 came from a non-elected official. We can't stand by and let this kind of stuff happen. And I wasn't touching on Adam Payne today, but I appreciate Regular Joe for doing that. But just so everybody's aware, we do have petitions over there, and over there that are asking you to sign, which then is showing a vote of no confidence in Adam Payne. And for some of you that don't know, I think I'll give you a lot of you do, some of you don't, because I have conversations. They say, what is a county administrator? So let me tell you what that is. We live in a corporation, that's the truth. Okay, look up the Act 1871. We live in a corporation. This corporation has a CEO. That CEO is Adam Payne. That is a county administrator. They are the CEO of this corporation. What we could do is we could pass a referendum which changes that to a county executive, which will then make that an elected position. Manitowoc did that. Manitowoc has it right now. And I'm sure some of you recently might have been
I just got denied to use the bathroom because they want to do a temperature test on my forehead, the pineal gland. I said, use my wrist. No, go use the bathroom at the sheriff's.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, you know, and that's another subject. That is true. So, what we could do is ask our county board supervisors. Each one of you here, you live in Sheboygan County, you each have a county board supervisor, and you can find their information on the website, sheboygancounty.com, or you can go to We Are Sheboygan, where we have all the information listed on there. Contact them. Tell them, we want county executive to be elected. That's what we want. And there are people who've been on this board longer than some people have been alive here. Some people have been on this board that go back to the 80s. Okay? We have these signs over here. Let me grab, I'm sure some of you guys seen all these signs around. Let me grab a couple real quick. And just so everybody knows, the smaller signs, hey, here we go. This is one of the good guys right here. It's one of the good guys. Hey, here's another good guy behind him too.
You know what? I just want to say one thing. People are, 2 minutes. Oh my gosh. No, I'll keep 30 seconds. You guys will make a difference. Your voice exists in me and a few other supervisors. And you know what? We're going to fight for you.
That's Mr. Jacob Immel, in case you guys are wondering. Jacob Immel. So could you see the sign? Reader's Digest, 1997. Do you see this? Something's happened. I got a feeling it has to do with who's been elected since then. And by the way, the small signs that you see in the yard sign over there, if anybody wants to buy those, they're $10 at our cost. So just pick one up, bring one up to the table, and then you can take it home. COVID, 99.98% survive. Stop the fear. This is what we're asking you to do. That ordinance doesn't stop the fear, it spreads the fear. And if you haven't had a chance, please take your time, join the Facebook group, check out wearesheboygan.com. We have some very interesting blog posts on there. We only have a few, but we're asking you to visit the website. We're asking for volunteers if you could help out, whatever skill set you have. This is just the start today. A lot of people think this may be the end. This is the beginning. This is where it starts right here. And so we're looking at each one of you. If any way you can, I know a lot of you have come up already. On the website, on the main page, you can sign up to volunteer. You can sign up to stay in the loop for what's going on. But we have an interesting article on there that was originally published by WHBL, and it was interviewed from Adam Payne. So please take a look at that article when you get a chance. We kind of dissect in there exactly how the manipulation, how the deceptive tactics, and how they're applied. And I think it's important for everybody to wake up to that. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to have an amazing singer come up here. I know I'm talking her off, but it's good. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Sarah Stressner from Sheboygan Falls. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
When I said amazing, I wasn't kidding. That was amazing.
Never heard it sung better.
God bless. I'm looking for somebody right there. I saw him. We're going to have a prayer and then we're going to conclude right now. And then we're going to see what happens in there. And just to remember, what we're looking for is a vote yes to file. And if there's some snakish stuff in there and they go to propose to pass it, then we want them to vote no. So be careful. If they say yes or no, make sure you know what they did in there. All right? Please tell us who you are.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Hankins, and that was my baby girl who just sang there. Didn't she do great? Ow! She did so good. She did so good. She did so good. It's so wonderful to see everyone here. I want to thank. How many were here for the first rally? Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad I'm not using my bullhorn? And the second rally, when I still had to use my bullhorn. But tonight, Josh Zimmerman brought his sound system, set it all up. Say thank you, Josh. Also, the ladies, Stephanie Arndt and Judy Poole. Stephanie put a Facebook group together and then renamed it on the 13th of July of this year. And she said, Judy, could you help me administer this? And Judy said, well, I suppose you only got 70 people on it. I just asked them, they've got 1,900 people on Sheboygan County for Freedoms right now. How many think we ought to try and double that and get Judy an assistant? Right?
Hey, can you let them know that we can't? Can you let them know? You can apologize. We're going to let them know. There were 42 seats available inside. I was supposed to tell you this a few minutes ago. I apologize. So if anybody is going to go inside to watch this, now's the time to start walking inside to do that. And there was a max, I think it was 42 at that time of. So you probably have to give up some kind of freedom to go inside there.
After all, it's your government. Wait a minute. Anyway, so please, if you want to go in, go on in. And we're going to pray. And this strikes me. I struggle as a person of faith with understanding how to strike a balance between being heavenly minded and earthly good. Does anybody else here have that same struggle? And I know that there's an important concept here that we need to remember. It's not political power. It's not by might. It's not by power. It's by my spirit, says the Lord. And it is 2 Chronicles 7:14. It is the people of God that are called upon to humble themselves and pray and turn from my wicked ways, our wicked ways. Because in some ways, we've got exactly the government we deserve, and that's not a good thing. So I want to challenge myself and us to be people of prayer and action, like the people that Nehemiah used, where they had a trowel and a mortar in one hand and a sword in the other. And they did both. Join me in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to you for the freedom that we enjoy. Make us truly mindful and appreciative and tenacious in its defense, not only for ourselves, but for all those around this world that count on the United States of America to provide security and freedom and liberty to any who may want it. Father, embolden us to do your will, your way in our day. And we pray for wisdom and courage for our leaders and for blessings on those who are doing the work of leading us at this time. Thank you, O God eternal. We pray it all in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Are you going to close? You're going to close?
Hi everyone, I want to say one thing. Thank you for praying. I definitely wanted us to pray together. I don't know if you have read Revelations. Anybody read Revelations? Just all of it or any of it? Yes? Okay, great. Do you know the verse in Revelation 21? How fear is actually their tactic right now to make us scared, okay? This is a spiritual struggle right now. For them to make us fearful is to keep us out of the heavenly city. Did you know that it says even the fearful will not enter? Don't walk around and be afraid. God gave us a power of strength and might. And touching on that, anybody that doesn't know the Lord and does not have a Bible, I have some free Bibles on the tables. Just grab it, okay? I encourage you to take it only if you don't have a Bible. Leave it to those that need one, okay? Thank you so much all for being here, and thank you for Sheboygan County for Freedoms. Stephanie and Judy did so much work, and all of you did too. I don't know everyone's name that helped, but thank you. Anybody else want to say something while they're inside?
God bless us all.